Iron Debate on RXMuscle.com, RX Television on RXMuscle.com. This is Iron Debate, part of the 2019 Iron Road to the Olympia, brought to you by Chemical Warfare. Visit chemical-warfare.com. This is the show where we settle the scores. This one of many Iron Debate analyst segments that we're going to be doing leading up to Olympia weekend. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Glad you can join us as we are going to go around the panel, introduce our esteemed panel of analysts. First, we go to the RX Muscle Studios in Cape Coral, Florida, and welcome in Dave Palumbo. Dave, the engine revving as we get things going here, the Iron Road to the Olympia, and we bring in another episode of Iron Debate.
I love doing these episodes especially where I have people that I know have strong opinions, like Jose and Sergio. We just got done with Fuad and Guy. That's what I created this show for. People who actually have very strong, passionate, belief systems that are not afraid to just lay it on the line.
Let's go to New England, the man they call the Boston Mass. And the last time we saw him, or the last time we spoke to him, he was getting a rousing ovation from the crowd at the Orleans Arena. Of course, you're talking about Jose Raymond. Jose, how are you? How is post-retirement life? What have you been up to?
I've been up to about 245. fat little bastard, but enjoying life. Got a lot of great things happening. A lot to look forward to, and ready to rock and roll here.
What are some of the great things you have going on? You're telling us some very cool, and whatever you can share right now to the audience.
Yeah, I can share it now because it's a go. I'm opening up a Metroflex in Boston. It'll be open by the end of October, and it'll be the best gym in Boston by far. We're putting a restaurant in there, 40,000 square feet, all the latest, greatest equipment, and just a beautiful building, beautiful location. So I'm excited for this.
What part of Boston?
It's in Malden, which is about 15 minutes north of the city. But it's a real busy area. It's right on the Everett line.
Isn't that where Jimmy Dakotas has all his hotels?
Jimmy's got stuff everywhere.
That's true, yeah.
He owned a place a mile away from where my gym is. And he owns a Burger King right across the street.
Oh, he does? Oh, shit. That's good. That's a good business.
He owns everything.
I know. Yeah, no, I know.
Well, Jose, before I go to Sergio, on a serious note, at around this time of the year, for the past however many years, you were knee-deep in Olympia prep. Obviously, last year was your last Olympia. Biggest difference now not going through that process, and as you told us off camera, for the first time in as long as you can remember, not going to the Olympia as a competitor or at all this upcoming one. Yeah,
it's the first time in 10 years that I haven't gone, that I'm not prepping. I miss prepping. I miss that focus and, being up early to get my cardio in and having a purpose, Right now it's business.
You can still get up early and do cardio, Jose, and not weigh 245.
I know, that's the thing. I personally need a purpose. I need to be on stage in trunks in order to get in shape.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate thing. I've always been overweight most of my life. Now, if I wasn't prepping for a show, but I'm gonna start getting back into it just to push myself and see how good I can look post hip replacement, and go from there.
No, but that's great news again. As he just revealed, he's opening up a Metroflex Boston coming soon. So exciting things for the Boston Mass. We now go out to the West Coast and welcome in Sergio Oliva Jr. Now, Sergio, you just revealed to us that you will, in fact, be at the Olympia. And what's cool is that you're going to be helping us out with our coverage of Olympia weekend. So we're excited about that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm always excited to work with you guys. But, yeah, I'm excited to actually go to the Olympia and not have shit to do, especially last year doing the Olympia. I was probably the busiest last year at the Olympia. I had to do the press conference, do the Olympia, and it was the red carpet for the bigger movie. So I was running back and forth. My tan is coming through my suit for the red carpet, ruined that suit. But so this will be a good trip to just go and chill and actually watch the show. It'll be kind of weird being on that stage and the next year back in the stands watching it, but it was all for a purpose.
We have to address the obvious right now, Sergio. Your camera. It's magnificent. You look as if you are in a 1988 tele-infomercial right now. Tell us about this camera that you use.
You know what it is? I actually borrowed the Camel Crew Magic Mirror, and you turned it into a camera. So I look good from all angles. Every time you look at me, I'm going to win the Olympia because that's how it works over there.
There you go. So Sergio and the Magic Camera. Guys, let's get to the topic at hand, and that is Hadi Choopan. Now, this conversation was created out of comments by four-time Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler, who we had on the show last week. And he said, when him and Dave were talking about Hadi Choopan and his prospects, should he ever make it to the United States if he's ever granted a special visa. And the topic was, well, you know, if he competes in the 212, how would he do? Well, Jay Cutler took it to another level. He went on to say, and Dave, you could correct me if I say anything wrong here, he says the way he looked at the Vancouver Pro, that he could stand in there, potentially even beat Flex Lewis. Furthermore, saying that if he does make it to the U.S., he should not compete at the 212. He should compete in the open class because he can finish, quote, top 3. Dave, am I correct in what he said so I'm not misrepresenting anything?
Absolutely. That's exactly what he said.
So, Sergio Oliva, let's go to you first. Given what you saw of Hadi Choopan at the Vancouver Pro when winning that show in absolute style, do you agree with that sentiment that he can go into the open class right now with no Shawn Rhoden, presumably no Phil Heath, and finish top 3 in that Olympia field?
No, I actually disagree. I think that he would win the 212 for sure. And I think that would be really cool too. I think if anything, that'd be cool to win 212 and then go to the open, like maybe some old David Henry days. But I think we're not understanding, like, we've only seen this guy stand next to certain people. And except for standing next to Cedric, I think that's the tallest person he's ever stood next to. Standing next to Rolly, hey, I'll tell you on a personal stand, standing next to those monsters immediately puts things into perspective. And I think that Hadi's condition and the package that he brings is insane. But when you put them standing next to certain guys, I don't think it's actually going to have that same wow factor. And I actually don't think that he could beat Bonac. I think Bonac and him are almost got to be the same height. And I would rather go with Bonac's legs and back over Hadi's. So, I mean, I'm always going to be devil's advocate, but I would rather him do 212 and then go from there rather than trying to jump into the open. And you're telling me he's going to beat Rolly and Brandon? I don't know. I don't think so.
Jose, let's go to you as a 212 veteran. Let's go to the other side of the comments that Jay Cutler made, and that is that he could stand in with Flex Lewis, potentially beat him. Do you see that as a real, given what you saw at the Vancouver Pro, do you see that as a realistic scenario?
Well, I was at the Vancouver Pro. I've stood next to Hadi twice on stage.
What did you think?
In Vancouver, it wasn't even close. It was a man with children. And I really liked the guys he was standing with Ian Valliere and
Nathan Diasha.
Nathan. And I will say that Hadi absolutely blew them out of the water. It wasn't a 1 point, a 2 point. It was a smoke show. And then you have a few weeks later, Ian. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Ian fared better against Dexter than he did against Hadi. That's how good Hadi is. Hadi's legs are insane. He's hard, shredded, separated. And when you say monsters, Sergio, this kid's a monster. He's 2-3 inches shorter than Bonac and Rolly, but wider than Bonac, and way better legs than Rolly, way better legs than Brandon, equally as good a chest. The only thing that Rolly really beats him in is height, maybe shoulder width and triceps. That's really it. Otherwise, this kid is striated. Every muscle is striated, granite hard, dry, separated, and big.
So if Flex was competing, you're saying that Hadi would have beat Flex this year? Hands down, easily?
Yeah, I hate to say it. But we haven't seen Flex, the new, I'm not going to say in a year from now that he couldn't beat him.
You're talking about the 212 Flex.
The 212 Flex. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Last year's. That if Hadi was doing it, I think Hadi would have beat him too, but I'm saying you think he would have blown him out of the water? Because if he would have blown him out of the water, then yeah, he could be top 3. Because otherwise, old Flex from last year wouldn't even have been in the top 5.
No, I would never say that because Flex is my man. I would never. That's a hard question to answer, but yes, I think Hadi, given all things considered, at the 212, he would have beaten him.
So Jose, let's take the other side of the conversation, the open class. Jay Cutler's assertion that if he makes it to the U.S., he should do the open class because he sees him as a potential top 3 in that open class. You were there in Vancouver. Do you agree with that sentiment?
100%. I said it in Vancouver. I said it to Hani Rambod. I said, dude, he should never do 212 again.
Wow.
He could go to the Olympia right now with that package he had in Vancouver, in the very least be top 3. Now that's saying that Shawn and Phil and Kai and Ramy aren't there all at their best. Now what's left is a Brandon Curry that he's already beaten. Granted, they're both better now, but he's already beaten Curry. If Cedric's there, Cedric beat Hadi, but that was a great Cedric. Who knows which Cedric you're going to get? And Hadi's a lot better now. And then you go down the line. Him and Bonac are very similar in height, stature, only this kid has wider shoulders. He has a longer torso, which makes for a better taper. I think they would have a crazy battle because I think he wins from the front and Bonac might edge him from behind, but not in a rear lat spread. Man, this kid is unreal. The only shot that he hasn't perfected yet is his rear double bicep. He doesn't have like all the knots going through the middle of his mid back, but his shoulders, arms, legs, everything are crazy. And he's crazy wide too for a short guy.
Dave, let's get you in because you had that conversation with Jay Cutler. Did that assertion come as a bit of a surprise to you when he said that he could see Hadi Choopan coming here and placing top 3 in the open class? Did that throw you for a bit of a loop?
Yeah, I didn't expect that because Jay doesn't usually make predictions and Jay doesn't usually go out on a limb and really say something great about someone that we haven't really seen tested on a stage because Jay's kind of like a facts type of guy.
Yeah.
So when he made that assertion, I was pretty, I was taken back. And the only reason I haven't been going crazy with my predictions about Hadi Choopan, although I've been on this crusade to get him into the U.S. The problem is I've never seen him in person, compete. So it's hard for me to really get as excited because I know pictures can be deceiving. I know he probably looks better than the pictures do because most guys do, especially if your conditioning is incredible. You can't really capture that on film sometimes. But when Jay said, hey, Dave, this guy beats Flex Lewis and he's probably top 3 in the world right now on the Olympia stage, I have to give that credibility because I give Jay a lot of credibility.
Dave, in person, when he's going through his quarter turns, you don't even notice anyone else.
Oh, really? Wow.
For a short guy, he can sit in his front relaxed, crunch down in his abs. He doesn't have to pull up like that.
Yeah.
He can crunch down and still have a crazy taper with block abs. When he does a quarter turn to the side, the amount of detail in his serratus inside is just mind-boggling.
Isn't it
a giant?
Yeah.
He's a monster.
Isn't it a shame though? It's a crime that this poor guy can't come to the U.S. It really is. It's so unfair. We have a guy who has the ability to do so well in our sport. He's done nothing wrong. He's just a guy who loves to lift weights, and he can't get into a visa for the United States. It's just nuts.
I'm glad he didn't the last 2 years because I would have lost him.
It would have pushed you down a place, yeah.
Moving forward, it is a shame. And I've spent enough time with him. So I like the guy.
Yeah.
I think he's a really legit guy. He obviously works really hard, and it's a shame that he can't be on the biggest stage in the world.
Yeah.
He should chase these guys wherever they go around the world and try to get on stage with them.
Unfortunately, most of these guys won't go compete anymore, and it seems like the European tour is basically non-existent anymore.
Well, we talked about, we saw Hadi Choopan compete in Vancouver. Dave, what year was it when he competed against Flex Lewis in Korea? Was that 17?
17.
Was 17, right. So it almost seems as if we're going to see Hadi Choopan, at least at the 212 division, or I mean, even open as well, he's going to have to compete internationally. It is a shame. I mean, obviously, a lot of political ramifications.
He should definitely do open if he's going to be competing around the world in other places. I mean, there's no reason to do 212.
Well, Jose, while we have you here, let's get your general assessment on the state of the 212. Obviously, coming into this Olympia with the vacated title, Flex Lewis, obviously moving to the open class, yourself no longer there. Who do you look at? I mean, many have tabbed Derek Lunsford really ever since the last Olympia as sort of the heir apparent in that class. Just your early handicap of the 212 division, how you see things shaking out potentially.
Well, they're all good. You know, Kamal's really good. Ahmad's really good. Obviously, Lunsford. David Henry is still very good. There's a lot of guys, and then there's some new sleeper guys coming up. People that you don't know about. But the problem with the 212 is these guys are all those names I just said don't compete all year. Ahmad's the only one that competed. You know, Eduardo's coming back, but the only way the class is going to flourish is if Derek gets out there and competes 2-3 times a year, maybe 4 times. Ahmad, David's got to compete more. They all got to get out as a group to promote the division. Otherwise, there's nothing exciting about it.
Jose, what did you make? I mean, obviously, you're not competing anymore. What did you make of there not being a 212 class at this past Arnold Classic?
Well, it speaks volumes. It's saying what I just said. Not enough of the, you know, there were plenty of guys that applied for the show, and there were plenty of guys that want to do it, but not big name guys, not the top 5 guys at the Olympia. This whole thing of waiting and just doing one show is bullshit. It's you have to get out there and get your face out there and compete to promote not only yourself but the division and create these rivalries. And it's not happening. And that's what's going on. They're crying about prize money. Well, there's not enough guys competing. It's all about selling tickets, making money to create the prize money. And not enough guys are doing it. And I'd be very surprised because let's face it, the best 212 guys could and should and will end up being in the open. You know, Flex, Hadi, you know, a bunch of these guys and many more. Lunsford, I doubt he'll be a 212 after this year. You'll see that once again, Lunsford's going to look like Superman. And then the day of the show, you're like, yeah, he'll probably win, but he didn't look like he did 5 weeks ago. So he's going to need to move up to be his best. And then it becomes like a minor league for the big boys.
I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you this. I'm going to ask Jose this as well because, again, we talk about Flex Lewis and leaving on a high note, obviously, now with his move up to the open class. This has been a debate for quite some time now because even before he made that announcement, there had been thought that Flex Lewis eventually would have that curiosity to, you know, explore the open class. Knowing what you know, seeing what you've seen, obviously he's going to do what he has to do, his homework to you know, gain that size to compete in the open class. How do you see him faring in the open class? Jose?
I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's going to do very well. He'll be a top 2, 3, maybe even win. Top 4 guy right out of the block. Because he's so professional, he's so complete, he's so conditioned, and he's not going to be the biggest guy. He's going to be the best quality. And that's the same thing I see in Hadi, is the quality with what he has. You know, when you compare the two, Flex is a winner. Flex is more of a businessman, more of a professional. But physique for physique, I don't know who's the best, and I can't wait to see it someday. You know, you could argue for either one of them. I've been on stage with both of them, and they're both unbelievable. But we haven't seen that Flex Lewis yet. We have seen Hadi compete heavier than 212. You know, he was probably 218, 219 in Vancouver, and that was unreal. So now picture Flex Lewis at 219 to 220. That's going to be a completely different human as well. So I think it's all about quality. Bodybuilding isn't a height and weight contest where Dennis Wolf would have been a 10-time champion, That's not how it works. So when you're talking quality, sure, Flex and Hadi can stand with anyone.
Sergio, let me bring you in because what you said about Hadi's prospects in the open class are kind of similar to
6 feet tall.
What?
He's going to go for the tall guys.
I just think in person, stature is a pose that you don't get points for. And you can have all the detail in the world. Once you stand next to someone who's such an attention grabbing, I'm not saying that person's better.
Right.
I'm just saying it's going to grab your attention. Yeah, when Hadi was going through his mandatories with Nathan, nobody gives a shit about Nathan. You're going to stare at Hadi. So I just think at the Olympia stage, it's just different. And again, I'm just saying like what I think. We won't know until they do, but it's the same thing with Flex. And this is something I don't have to deal with that you deal with, Jose's. Right before a show, I don't have to worry about trying to cut weight and kill my body and make it actually look like shit to make this weight. And then you got a day or two at most to carb up and get your body ready to get back on stage, where the open guys, we don't have to do that. So I think we've never seen Flex's best. We only just now saw Hadi's best. Whenever you don't have to do that, I heard for the last few times Flex was literally weighing in with a towel or not even weighing in. But he was already at that max anyway. So I would like to see every bodybuilder, 212 or opens, full potential.
Well, Sergio, let me just build off what you were talking about as far as a general transition, 212 to the open class, because what you said is pretty reminiscent to what Chris Aceto said a few years ago. He made the comparison that when you look at like the New York City skyline versus, I guess a skyline in middle America, the New York City skyline is going to take your attention. They're just bigger buildings. They're taller buildings. Do you subscribe to that theory that even at like what Jose said, Flex with his professionalism, the quality of muscle, with all that, if he brings his perfect package, the eyes of the judges are just going to go to the bigger human being on stage?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about who's the better person for the sport. That's a completely different conversation because, yeah, Flex and what he brings to for all of us and opens opportunities for all of us is just something that, you can't really put a point towards. But, yeah, I just feel like Rolly starts getting hyped up. You're just going to start looking at him and you start to kind of maybe lose a little bit of the attention on maybe someone who's smaller. I mean, look at David Henry back in the day, that David Henry, and him standing next to Ronnie Coleman. Like when they did the challenge round, I thought David won those rounds. But Ronnie is just so goddamn humongous that, it's just hard for a regular person to comprehend that this person and their dimensions is better than that person in their dimensions. And I think that's really hard for people to do. But I would love to see, I just would love to see them go against each other. I hate having debates about shit that theoretically might never happen. We could talk about Hadi forever, but is this even a possibility that he's ever even going to come here? Like, we don't even know. So, I mean, I just feel like it's just such like it's kind of like a waste of time to even talk about, like, and get yourself so worked up and, and all you end up doing is just talking shit about other people when really you're never going to end up seeing it. I would love to see the Olympia go back to traveling, and that would eliminate all our problems. We could take the Olympia to Hadi, and then it would shut up all the issues, but we know that's never happening.
Dave, let's get a final word out of you just as far as the topic that we're discussing now, and that is potentially, Flex's prospects in the 212. And then, what Sergio said about, having his reservations about Hadi Choopan having that instantaneous success amongst the bigger bodybuilders in the open class.
My thinking was, and that's why, I was, surprised that Jay didn't agree with me, was if you can win the 212, and it's pretty much in the bag for you, why not go do it and win the title? Then you could think next year about maybe doing the Open. Do the 212, get that title. In Iran, when he goes back there, I have to imagine he's going to be a national hero if he goes back with an Olympia crown, right? So he'll probably make a lot of money from that. He can parlay that into income for himself. Then now that he has the title, if he wants to try to win some open events, maybe the Open Arnold or something like that, that's a different story. I think it's a mistake just to jump into the Open and then place third. And in most general population people's mind, oh, he took third. Oh, he won the 212 Olympia. That just sounds better, even though financially it's probably better for you to do, to come in third at the Olympia. It's probably way more money. That's just my thinking. For the first time going to the Olympia, I would say do 212 and then think about moving forward. Should I go into the open class?
Yeah, but the problem is that Shawn and Phil and Ramy will be back by then. So this is kind of like the one shot for everybody.
Then just let him be the 212 Olympia champ. That's a good enough title for him at this point. I don't think he needs more than that.
That raises his stock way better, for sure.
Jose, go ahead, Sergio.
I was just gonna say this is gonna be the Chris Dickerson Mr. Olympia anyway, regardless. So it doesn't matter in the Open. and people that probably follow don't even realize what I'm even saying. They don't even know that there was a strike and there was an Olympia where nobody gave a shit and nobody was that excited. And this is my generation's Chris Dickerson, because it's not gonna matter. It's gonna unless Dexter wins, it's gonna be a lackluster Olympia. It's not gonna matter.
You agree, Jose?
Well, I think Mr. Olympia, whoever wins is going to matter. They're getting a $400,000 check.
Oh yeah, that's I'll take that check. And my dad won an Olympia and nobody showed up. I bet you he still counts that.
Yeah, of course he does. It's in the record.
If you're Phil Heath, Sergio, and you got $400,000 wiggling in front of your face, don't you think you would diet down and do the show?
With my new supplement company coming out, absolutely I would. That shit's expensive.
I mean, that could really give him at least a nice nest egg to get him through the next year. That's for sure.
But do you think that he realistically can fix his stomach in less than a year? I think he needs more time.
I don't know if he needs to fix it. He just needs to control it more on stage. I think that if he just worked on presentation, I think that would fix the problem.
Well, he had another surgery.
Edom isn't doing the show, so he should easily win.
What happened?
The only guy that beat Phil when he had a stomach issue
is
Shawn, and he's not there. If I was Phil, I would have sucked down. Who knows if he isn't? The last pictures I seen of him, he looked gigantic and lean.
Yeah.
He looked within striking distance.
Jose and Sergio, yes or no? Because at the time of this recording, we're still 3.5 weeks for the Olympia. Gut feeling, yes or no? Last minute addition. Phil Heath, will he be on the 2019 Olympia stage, Jose?
Yes. I think he'd be dumb not to. I think he's smarter than that.
He doesn't travel when he's prepping, so he wouldn't be traveling still if he was. That's the only thing I'm relying on is I feel like I know him and the Olympia is very important to him, and he wouldn't be doing all these seminars and all these things that he's doing in other countries. So I don't think so.
Jose, I want to get one last word out of you. At the 212 class, and look, when we've talked about 212, you were in that conversation, obviously. You talk about Flex Lewis, you talk about David Henry. Well, this time going forward, now we're mentioning Kamal El-Ghardi, we're mentioning Derek Lunsford, Eduardo, David Henry. Give us someone that we're not talking about much that after Olympia weekend we're going to be talking about.
There's a few guys, out there that have won a few shows. A guy that I help has one of the best structures of all the 212 guys, other than Lunsford. But, he's just had trouble getting conditioned. And Lloyd Dollar, he won Chicago.
Yes.
His physique is beautiful. If he can get in shape, he can. I'm not going to say he's going to win, but he could definitely be a dark horse to surprise a lot of people. There's a lot of people out there just like him. If Jewett brings the condition that he brought when he turned pro, he's another guy that could leapfrog a lot of guys. There's plenty of those guys out there.
What about Shawn?
Clarita? Shawn, he's like a mini mass monster, I think he's going to do well anyway. I don't think anyone's sleeping on him. I just don't think he's beaten Lunsford or Kamal. But I think he'll certainly do better than he did last year. And he'll possibly be in that top 5-6 spot, But everyone in front of him are professionals, like Ashkenani. He's going to come in better shape than he did last year with that same size. And I don't think Shawn can beat that just yet. And David Henry's like a bigger version of Shawn, so I don't think he's going to beat him. So I think in the 5-6 spot, you'll find Shawn. But he could surprise me. I don't know, I hope he does.
On that note, that's going to do for this episode of Iron Debate. Special thanks to Sergio Oliva Jr., who's also going to be helping us out Olympia weekend in Las Vegas. Jose Raymond, big news out of him. Metroflex Boston coming soon to the Boston area, so check his Instagram page for further details. Dave Palumbo, and of course, our producer, Tyler Shore, doing a great job as always. I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.